Welcome to the Town of Hilton Head Island's Gullah Geechee Land and Cultural Preservation Task Force meeting. This is February the 6th, 2023. I'd like to go ahead and call this meeting to order. Karen, are we in compliance with FOIA?
Yes, sir, we are.
Great. Would you please call the roll?
Certainly. Mr. Abdul Malik?
Present.
Mr. Simmons?
Present.
Mr. Campbell?
Present.
Ms. Green? Mr. Hens?
Present.
Ms. Wright? Present. And Mr. Stevens?
Here.
Thank you.
Okay, great. Thank you all for being here. Let me just say a couple of things before we move into the rest of the agenda. Again, I want to welcome everyone, certainly our public and those from the community. Really appreciate your support and you taking the time to come out and be interested in what we're trying to do here in the town and in the community. It's been a while since we've had a meeting, and I don't know, this is February. I don't know if we're still saying Happy New Year or not yet. But for those who I haven't seen, Happy New Year to you. And I certainly appreciate my colleagues here on the task force for all the work that you've done over the past years and months, and that we're excited about some of the things that we've done in the past, and we're certainly looking forward to what we're able to accomplish in the future. So I just wanted to take a minute to let you know how much I appreciate you taking your time and giving some energy to some of the items that we are addressing here. I'm honored to be your chair and to have been in this position for quite a while. And this is a new year, so I've got a brand new attitude, and I'm expecting great things not only out of everyone else but myself. So we'll try to do a better job at doing a better job. Okay, with that being said, the next item I have on the agenda is the approval of the agenda. If there are no questions or comments or corrections, could I have a motion to approve the agenda, please? Mr. Hens approved the agenda. Is there a second? Second. Ms. Wright has a second the motion. Okay, all those in favor, please show by raising your right hand. That is unanimous. Thank you so much. The next item is approval of minutes from our November 7th meeting in 2022. Hopefully you've had a chance to read over those minutes and review them. May I have a motion to approve the minutes from the November 7th meeting? Mr. Hens has moved. Second. Mr. Campbell has second. Okay, all those in favor, show by raising your right hands. And that is unanimous as well. Thank you so much. So far, so good. Do we have any appearance by citizens?
No, sir.
Okay, no one has signed up. Okay, great. All right, the next item I have on the agenda is discussion items, and we are just over the moon with the introduction of a new staff member. Ms. Krishana Perry is our principal planner for the Historic Neighborhood Preservation. I don't have your resume in front of me. Would you like to maybe come and address us and introduce yourself?
Good afternoon, all. Chairman Stevens. My name is Krishana Jackson Perry, and I am indeed the new principal planner over historic neighborhood preservation for the town of Hilton Head Island. I am honored to be here and have made the switch from, you don't have my resume in front of you, which you don't need at all, but just to give you a little bit about myself. I'm from North Carolina. My husband and I moved here to Hilton Head Island almost 2 years ago from Baltimore, and where I was working for the federal government doing auditing and policy analysis for Congress, and was most recently working on some transportation related planning issues, and kind of led me to want to get back down to the local level and work in the community in which I live and serve the community in which I live and be an active member of the community and of the island. And so somehow I ended up here, and I'm very excited to get started on this work and to meet everyone, to work with everyone and advance the priorities of the report, the task force, and of course, the Native Island community. And I look forward to working with everyone. If there's any questions, feel free, but also I will be around and I will be making my rounds to personally introducing myself to each of you and into the community as well. So thank you so much for having me.
Yeah, you do live here on the island?
I do.
Okay, all right, great. Well, welcome, and it's great to have you in the community, and certainly as a part of our task force. Did anyone else have any questions for Ms. Perry? She's like she said, she's going to be making some rounds to reach out individually, and you'll get to know her a little better. But great, we're so glad to have you here with us. And if there's anything we can do to help you with not only your job here at the town, but in the community, to help you find your way around. I'm sure you've been making your rounds. And as we often say when we have a new position or a new hire, I'm sure you've had a wealth of information and to catch up on, and it's like drinking from water from a fire hose. So we are sensitive to that. And again, we want to be in support of you any way we can. We do not expect you to have the answers immediately. So we know that there's a lot of work that we have to do in partnership. So I really appreciate you being here. Thank you. Okay, next we'll have a business license meeting update. Ms. April Akins, Revenue Service Manager.
Good afternoon, everyone. It's great to see you again. It has been a while since I was up here. I think that was back in November. I was just going to give you a brief update of what happened since we had the meeting here. Chairman Levon Stevens had asked that we meet out of the committee and talk about the pop-up shops more thoroughly so we can get a better understanding. So on December 5th of last year, I met with some committee members. It was Joyce Wright and Abraham Abdul Malik, and also your chair, Levon Stevens. We had several topics of discussion, and I'll kind of just hit through our agenda, and then we can see if you have any questions afterwards. So we talked about the pop-up shops and special events and how they're identified or defined within the town's ordinances. So the town does define a pop-up shop as a special event and would need to follow the same regulations that all special events are required to follow. We went on to discuss event producers and their requirements as well. So all event producers are required to obtain a town business license, whether it's a person, a business, or a nonprofit. We then moved on to the town requirements for the pop-up shops, and we talked about that at length. I took a lot of suggestions and recommendations to town staff based on our conversations, but to let you know, again, the pop-up shops are treated the same as other special events. We talked about how the special event process and the requirements are complicated and are different depending on the number of participants that will be at the special event, and the fact that there are different requirements based on the participants. We understand that is confusing, and it was recommended that we should treat all special events the same, whether there's 250 participants, 10 participants, or 1,000. There were additional recommendations to help streamline the special event process. They requested a template be included with a checklist for the event producer so that the producer is aware of the requirements for the event. A contact name, phone, and email address of town staff that's assigned to the special event for the event producer. Cross-train town staff on special event processing, as we know it's complicated. Additional education and communication to the event producer on the requirements for their particular event. We then moved on to talk about vendors and the different types of vendors that are involved with pop-up shops or special events. It is the responsibility of the event producer to make sure that the vendors participating are properly licensed. We talked about there's a process in the special event policy that if you have less than 250 people participating, then the licensing requirements are pretty straightforward. However, if you have more than 250, then the event producer can purchase a $5 vendor permit fee for just that event for anyone that's operating at the event that's from out of town. So again, it was recommended that that should be a possibility or an option for all events, not just for those that have large events of over 500. Let's see, we also talked about the requirements for the food vendors. There's more requirements involved with serving food, including food trucks. And so it was recommended that there should be additional language in the special event application with the information that's required. For example, all food trucks need to have a business license, period. So, and it takes some time to get that approval from the different town departments. So, making sure that people understand there's probably about a 2-week lead time required for that licensing. We moved on to business license requirements. And again, discussed that regular business activity is defined as vendors operating more than 3 days per year. In that case, that person would need to have a business license. We also talked about the local industry business license that the town offers, which allows exemption of the business license tax. It includes items that are hand-produced or grown on personal property, such as farming or gardening, flowers, flower arrangements, arts and crafts, and seafood. Lastly, we talked a little bit about open-air markets related to the preservation of the Gullah Geechee culture, and then we moved on to talking about our new staff member here, Kevin Tylis, who is our public space programming and events manager. He had just come on recently, back earlier in the year, and asked that he attend the next meeting, and introduce himself so that you understand his role in the town with special events and on special events on town property. So I did send all of our suggestions and recommendations to Angie Stone and to Kevin Tylis so that can be considered when they're looking at the policy for special events. And that was the end of our meeting. It was a lovely meeting. Do you have any questions?
Yeah, great.
You were there.
Thank you, April. And I want to say thank you to Ms. Wright and Mr. Malik for their efforts in meeting with you as well. Do you have any questions for April?
I wanted to just ask, from the template and the license versus permit fee, those items that we talked about, have they been implemented yet?
To my knowledge, they have not. I can certainly go back to Angie and see where they are. I think I shared with you during the meeting that town staff is looking at that policy and procedures, and I know it had been escalated above Angie for review. I just don't know where that is in the process, but I can certainly follow up.
All right, thank you, appreciate it.
I think Joyce has something.
Thank you very much. I just wanted to add, in your report, I just wanted to revisit that we talked about that there possible could be some exceptions going into this, and I think that we need to make sure that we say that, so when people are looking to get their business license or having their license or having a permit or what they need, there are exceptions to some of the rules based upon making sure that we fulfill all the requirements. So I don't want the public to think that they cannot if they don't follow all the rules. So I just want to make sure that we say that publicly, that there are some exceptions to it.
Very good point. Yes,
Yeah.
we did talk about that.
Yes. Thank you.
Thank you.
Okay, other
Hello,
questions?
thanks for the report. My question would be, I think I understood you to say that you wanted to have the requirements the same for whatever size of function it was?
We did talk about that at the meeting, and it was we all agreed that it would be a fair and consistent practice instead of having different requirements for different events.
I guess I asked because I know in the past it was quite different if you had over a certain amount of people. So is that higher requirements going to be waived for small events?
Right. If it's not applicable, then it would not be required. So, we wouldn't have to reach out to as an example, South Carolina Department of Transportation for parking or changing patterns for travel, for traffic and stuff for a small event. That it just wouldn't apply.
Yeah, but so a large event would then still have to meet those same requirements, though?
Correct. Yeah.
Okay,
For safety, yes.
Okay.
Yeah.
And there was another question about licenses. Now, is all participants going to be required to have a town business license?
So if the vendor is operating more than 3 times a year, they will need a business license. And depending on the type of license or the type of activity, they may have to have a license no matter what. So a food truck is required to have a license.
Right.
It wouldn't matter how many times they're operating in the town.
Right. Well, it seems at some point we had some confusion on a pop-up shop versus an open air or flea market. Did that ever come to any resolve? And I know you made mention of it, but I guess it's a matter of clarification or understanding. Was there ever, because it seemed as though a big question was that you had, as it was written, there were certain requirements for a flea market or open air where the pop-up shop had a different requirement. Did we ever get to a resolve?
So I'm not familiar with the land management ordinance when it comes to open air sales. I would definitely have to refer with Missy to make sure we are answering your question correctly. I know the events that we are talking about are considered special events. So whether it's a pop-up shop or a flea market, that would be considered a special event and would have to go through the process at town hall and town staff to make sure that it's meeting the safety requirements for the public. I think there's probably a difference when you start talking about open air sales and open air markets based on our town ordinance.
Yeah, I think the one that I'm most referring to was the quote-unquote flea market, where I think there were, just that the requirements or the standards to have been met were different, or if one was doing a defined pop-up shop. I think it was a matter of definition that somehow construed requirements.
I think there are times, and I'm going to refer to Missy on this, open air sales have a different definition in our
Flea
ordinance
markets.
than flea markets, correct.
Right.
And I think it depends, if you're having a reoccurring event such as a flea market, if it's happening daily, weekly, monthly, it still would require, there would be an event sponsor, that person would still need to have a license. The vendors would still need to be licensed. At that point, they would be operating more than 3 times a year. So they would all need to have a business license.
Right, by definition, though, I'm still asking, did you clear up the difference between the flea market? I know the requirements would be, I guess, relatively the same for whichever
Yes.
one you were using. But it appeared that if I came in and told you I wanted to do a pop-up shop, there was a set of rules and requirements for a pop-up shop. And if I said, well, we're going to do a flea market, there were another set of rules, and they didn't cross over to where
I see.
each of those,
Okay.
by definition, either had the same or a totally different standard to be met.
Yes.
And that created a very big...
A problem.
Yes.
Okay.
So I don't know if that was...
I understand what you're talking. I'm
Right,
sorry. I was
good.
trying to follow. I agree that there are there's some language that we really should look at as part of your process when you're looking at pop-up shops. And I certainly can help, Missy work through that to make sure we're meeting requirements with special events. So they're not, they're not disagreeable with each other, because it does kind of change things depending on how you're operating the special event. So I definitely think that Missy and I can work on that, because I don't have the knowledge right now to tell you exactly how those are defined in the LMO and how that impacts how you want to operate a pop-up shop. Does
Right.
that
And,
make
and I
sense?
say that, and not to belabor a point, but it became almost prohibitive by definition, is why I
Okay.
really asked that.
Okay.
Yeah.
Yeah, I think that should be reviewed by town staff.
Yes, sir.
When we sat in that meeting, there was some discovery about sponsorships of pop-up shops. So if I'm not mistaken, I'm thinking that in any organization, whether nonprofit or business organization that had a business license, they could sponsor something like the community events that brought about this whole discussion as a
Yes.
sponsor, yes?
Yes, we talked about that, absolutely.
Okay.
As long as the event sponsor is licensed, then absolutely. There's no restrictions on who has the ability to do that.
Okay, all right. So I think that is a point too that we may want to definitely make public, because I think that as a result of the conversation that we had and for the reason of our meeting, the young lady who was a part of that activity may seem a bit discouraged to even try to do it again now. So I think that there's an opportunity there for us to promote another venue, another avenue for that to happen.
Yes,
Okay.
I agree.
Other questions from me? Let me just say a couple things. Yeah, as I recall in the meetings, there was some discussion about if there's a sponsor, and I think that all of the vendors still would have to be licensed, right?
Again, it would depend based on the type of activity. So if you wanted to have an event that was ongoing, so, that reoccurred every week or a couple of times a month or however, or monthly, however, but it's going to continue, at that point, those vendors that are participating, if they're going to participate more than 3 times at that particular event, they would need to have a business license. If it was someone coming from out of town and they were only going to come once, they would not require it. So it's going to depend on the vendors and their type of activity.
Okay, and I know we're reviewing some of that language and policy, which I think is a good thing. You mentioned education. That's going to be important to let people in the community know exactly how it works. And to Mr. Simmons's point, how things have changed. One of the things that I think that came out of the last meeting that we had and this meeting that we had with just a few of us is that staff and the town wants the events to be successful. We encourage that.
Absolutely.
So we do not want to be in a position of being prohibitive, but we do have to find ways to mitigate any of the challenges that might come up. So I
Yes,
just want to
and-
make sure that we understood that as well, that we are working to encourage and find ways to support the events. The education is important for our community as well as for our staff, so that we don't have uncomfortable interactions in the community between staff
Yeah.
and those who are trying to do events. So just to make sure we're all educated on both sides. The education goes both ways, in my
I agree.
opinion.
Town
Okay?
staff's here to help. We definitely want successful events, that people thrive and love our community and they love our special events. So we're here to make sure that they're successful, they're safe, and honestly, we're not here trying to stop those events. That's never been the intent, but there are some regulations that need to be, addressed, and that is a requirement. It could be a federal law, it could be a state law, it could be a local town ordinance. So we just want to make sure everyone is doing what's right.
Yes, Mr. Hintz.
And I think you said this, but if somebody wanted to do a pop-up shop or a special event, they would be referred to a person or a department at town, and the town would help them from there, right? It's just a one-stop shop.
Yes, so
Okay.
Eileen Buckaloo is our staff member that works with anyone submitting a special event application. And based on the needs of the event, she obviously will send it out to appropriate town staff to make sure that those items are being met for the approval of the event. They also meet monthly, actually it's biweekly, to talk about the upcoming events, making sure everything is on track. So staff is working constantly across the departments to make sure the communication is there, and we all understand what's needed to make sure that the event is successful.
Okay, yeah, Ms. Wright?
I just want to add that on conclusion of the meeting that we had, we all agreed that we were pretty much on the same page. And the most important thing was that we were waiting at that point for our special event person to come in, and also Ms. Perry. So now that we have them here, I think that the process would run a little smoother because we now have a point person other than Ms. Buckaloo that we
Yes.
can also just
Right.
address things too. So that was a part of the conclusion that we
Definitely
came to.
Positive outcome.
Yeah, so, exactly. And I think, Mrs. Simmons, that kind of would answer some of the questions that we have in terms of the pop-up and the definition and just making sure that we are all saying the same language. Because at that point, had we tried to put something in place, we would have to wait until we got approval from the two of them as well. Thank you.
Thank you. Other questions? Okay, I want to open it up just for a minute to the public and our folks in attendance to see if they have a comment or a question on this particular item.
Good afternoon, Taiwan Scott, for the record. I think we know there's a big process of trying to get everything clarified, but the focus on the special events criteria or avenue, I think there needs to be a better clarification between special events and what an open-air sales and farmers market business license is and allows. My understanding of a special event is you would have to actually come to the town each time you're going to do an event. Set the day, set the time, set the criteria, possibly be bonded and insurance. We're talking about little small business owners trying to do something every now and then. So if somebody has a open air sales and farmers market business license, will they still be required to jump through all the hoops of a special event? This just needs to be a better clarification. I understand the special events avenue, but I mean, we're not big sponsors and big companies or businesses that are putting on 150, 250, 50. Making it so everybody is required to have a special events license could be more burdensome on the small business owner. So I think there's more details that needs to be ironed out, and how or if there's a conflict with the current open air sales and farmers license and farmers market business license that's currently in the LMO. So if someone has that license now, how is that going to affect them? Or are they now going to be required to, every time they want to do something, run and get it at special events? So I think there needs to be a better clarification on that. Thank you.
Thank you. I think that earlier we've discussed that there was pop-up shops and special events are going to kind of come under that one umbrella. So we are working to kind of clear that up. And again, to accommodate folks that want to do a special event, a pop-up shop, or whatever it is that we want to call it. I do think we still want to encourage everyone to, if they're doing business in the town, they want to have a business license. We want to encourage that. But I understand your question. I did understand your question.
More so of what's currently in place.
Yeah.
As far as the business license for open air sales.
Sure.
Farmers market.
Yeah, we're working through that process. And I'll just share one quick little anecdote with you. Some years ago, my oldest son is 26 now, so that would have been 16 years ago. We set up our little lemonade stand out in front of Mount Calvary. And we sold lemonade. People stopped by. I don't know the gentleman's name, but actually one of the officials from the town stopped by and bought some lemonade. Certainly, we realize that things have changed over time, so we can't keep doing business the way we used to do it 16 years ago or 20 years ago or 30 years ago, where we used to just set up shop or set up something in our yard and just start selling. But we are trying to work through to clean up some of that language, Mr. Scott, to your point. And the point is well taken, so we can clean up some of that language and help everybody in the community understand exactly how it works and how we can accommodate them. Hopefully that'll help answer your question. Other questions? Mr. Hintz.
I may be out of order and just gavel me down, but can I make a suggestion? What if we had a location, and granted, it might not be the best location because these pop-ups might want to be in the historical neighborhoods where they are, but what if we had a central location and had somebody get all the licenses, and then anybody could go to that location for that day or that event without having to go through all of the licenses. In other words, somebody's already done it and they're there for that occasion. Is that a possibility?
Yeah, I think that's some of the discussions we've been having, but I don't know if we can circumvent certain things. That maybe I should let staff answer that. But in my opinion,
they can take the, because they'll be set up, they'll have all the safety factors, the parking, everything will be all set, all ready to go. And then the people that want to have a pop-up or a special event could just go to that location that has all of those permits already in place so that they don't have to reinvent the wheel, if you will.
yeah, I think that's on the level of maybe a market or an open-air market. It's my understanding, though, that the challenges come when people are actually trying to do it on their property or a particular property. So I'm not sure how that would work, but I can't answer that. So I don't know if you even want to address that. We're working toward that, but maybe that's an idea we can explore. Other questions or comments? You good? Okay, turn your microphone on, please.
I know from the last meeting, we went over the difference between the flea market, the open market, the pop-up shops. There was a little more I wanted to hear about a yard sale. Because I think that, if I remember correctly, the rules, again, were totally different when it came to a yard sale also. And as I remember, it was brought up because of, let's say when the school has the largest yard sale and things like that. And what made that different also from an event, a flea market, or an open air. Not only did I remember it made the definition different, then that's when it became a big conversation about the number of people involved. So if we can kind of touch on maybe that again, so I can understand when it comes to a yard sale also, and if we don't discuss it today, in further discussions, if we can have that answer. The other thing, if you can kind of touch on one more time about the visitors pass, because I know we went back and forth about that also. Like, how do we assure that they're accountable for coming in to our pop-up shops, flea markets, and they are not following the same procedures that we here have to follow. So they're coming most of the time on the weekends. By the time town's open again, they're gone. So how do we figure, that situation out too? And I just remember those two sticking out.
So if you know of someone who is coming in on the weekend and is operating and they don't have a business license, you certainly can reach out to me and I can pursue enforcement with that outside of, with my staff. We do that daily not just from people coming on the weekend. So we've got contractors that come in. It's just a part of life when you're enforcing business license tax codes. So if you know of anyone, please reach out to me, and I will be available to try and enforce that. If someone is a visitor and coming in and working at a special event, then the sponsor should have, make sure that vendor is properly licensed and paying taxes if it's applicable. So it depends on the situation. If they're coming in and doing it all on their own and they're not caught, so to speak, we do have means of following up with them outside of their time that they were here on the island. The yard sales, I cannot speak to a yard sale that is just done on private property by someone who decides to have a yard sale on Saturday and they're selling their own belongings. That is not something that is regulated in the business license law. However, once you decide to host a yard sale on someone else's property, such as, at the high school, and it becomes a special event. So in that case, they would submit an application, and then the vendors are reviewed to see if licensing is required. So if someone is only going to participate in that event for one day and they're not going to go to other yard sales or be at other events, then they wouldn't have to have a business license because it falls under the threshold of 3 days of operation within the year. If someone is a true business, then of course they would need a business license. So again, it's going to vary based on the circumstances and the business activity.
Okay. Now, how about those people that come in for the weekend that do get their business license? How do you make them accountable for paying their taxes?
So once we know they're operating, we reach out to them, and of course we want voluntary compliance. It's not something, we don't want to, I'll say this, most people we reach out to comply. They say, okay, I needed to get a business license, I'll get one. They pay their taxes, and it's usually a very easy process. It's pretty rare that we find people who refuse once we contact them. If that's the case, we do have code enforcement, and they can be cited for operating without a business license if found doing so. And those are the means of enforcement we have in our code.
Okay.
Okay. Yes, as we want to try to move the agenda along, I think we're circulating the questions. Ms. Wright, you have something else for us?
Yeah, just one last thing. I just want to say that we did address a lot of these questions when it came to the yard sale and people who are coming in for the weekend. We also came to the conclusion, too, we can't really police everyone that's coming through, so it's really hard to know that when we do have individuals who come in and with a pop-up, or if they choose to do a yard sale, just let us know. And any other issues, like letting the town know when the people are here and they're doing that, just as when the town may go and see someone that is a native of Hilton Head who's doing that, who may write a question about it. So we have to do our part in terms of helping support the town in regards to letting them know what is happening around us. That's all.
Absolutely. Yeah, we talked about ways of, coming into compliance even after the event is over. I think that for the most part, if not for all of the parts, if someone comes into the town or the community, we will have their information, but we'll be able to get in contact with them. So we should be able to follow up if we need to follow up with someone. Okay? All right? Thank you, April.
Okay, thank you.
Okay, the next item I have on the agenda is special events. Mr. Kevin Tylers is here with us, and we'd like him to maybe come and introduce himself, and he might have been able to answer some of those questions from the last item.
I'll do my best. Thank you, Mr. Stevens and everybody for having me. This is my first Gullah Geechee Task Force meeting, so I'm honored to be here with you all. little bit of background about myself. I've been coming to the island for 35 years. My wife and I moved here with our 2 young kids in August from New Jersey, so we're really lucky to be here and honored to be living here on the island, and very familiar with the Gullah Geechee community and the history. And, you know, I'm only 2 months into this position, but I'm learning as I'm going. But it's been a great process so far, and like you said, Mr. Stevens, earlier, just another person that you all can reach out to when it comes to special events. Any questions you may have, please email me, you know, call me on my cell phone. I'm, you know, happy to help you in any way that I can with your special events. So I came on with the town about 2 months ago, just in charge of the public programming and helping out with all special events that take place in all of our parks. So that's kind of my job in a nutshell. But like I said, just still learning all the, you know, all the municipal laws, regulations, all that type of stuff when it comes to special event. But so far it's been great. A couple months here with the staff. And I really look forward to working with all of you with your future events.
Great. Thank you, Mr. Tyler, and welcome. We look forward to working with you as well, and if anything we can do to help support you in your position. And of course, it's good to know that there is another point person that we can have some contact with. Anybody have any questions for Mr. Tyler? Or
Do you mind spelling your last name for us?
Yep, it's Tylus. Yep.
I didn't hear this in your explanation, but was there any, I'm explaining, you know, past occupations that give you a special qualification for the work that you're doing? I know the town did its job. I just like to hear.
Yeah, so my background is athletics and special events. I worked at a Division III college for 7 years in athletics, doing all special events. I ran the state championships for Special Olympics, also helped run the national games for Special Olympics as well, where it brings in obviously all of our special athletes from around the country. We've had thousands of people that have come to our campus, and so I was one of the major parts in running those events. In the past 4 years, I've been working at a nonprofit for an organization that's very close to me and my family for adults with developmental disabilities. So my brother-in-law is severely autistic. After my work with the college, I worked for for a nonprofit in New Jersey that we're trying to hopefully bring down to the island as well, because there's a huge need for it. But for them, I ran all of our community events, golf outings, and all special events that we hosted.
One question. Is the customer always right?
I've been told to say yes. Yep. Yeah, you're welcome. Thanks.
Anyone else? Great. Thank you, Mr. Tyler.
Stevens.
We look
Thanks,
forward to
everybody.
working with you. Okay. The next item I have on my agenda is the district planning update from Missy Lewick, Assistant Community Development Director, also known as Plan B.
You just met our Plan A over here, so I can relinquish this title, all right? I just wanted to say real quick that Krishana was a little light with her introduction of herself.
Yes, she
She brings a ton of energy and charisma and a really impressive background, and we're really happy to have her. And she's really eager to learn. She's eager to learn the community, to get involved. And I think when she gets her feet wet, she will be making huge strides, especially for this implementation work program. But I also wanted to say real quick, because we had another principal planner, Ashley Goodrich, who's here in the audience, also started on the same day as Krishana. So we have a fuller team in community planning. And so I'm really excited for 2023 for what we're going to be able to accomplish. But right now I'm here to talk about district planning update. And this line item is the replacement for what used to be the standing item on the agenda called Historic Neighborhood Overlay. And I'm calling it District Planning Update, where we left off in November. which was the last meeting that we had. We were fresh off of the adoption of the Mid-Island District Plan, which is a really exciting plan and is one that we're going to look to replicate throughout the island in 2023. And the Mid-Island District Plan incorporated 5 historic neighborhoods with recommendations. We're looking to launch, actually, next week, our internal project launch for our district planning and growth framework project for the town. And it will incorporate all of the remaining historic neighborhoods throughout the island in this district planning exercise. And at the end of it, the output will be recommendations and zoning calibration similar to what we did in the Mid-Island District Plan, where we ended up with a new future land use map, and we had recommendations for additional uses, such as the neighborhood commercial use that was anticipated for the historic neighborhoods. And we're going to be looking at density and density calibrations throughout the island. So that's what we're going to be launching, and we'll keep that as a standing agenda item, and I'll report out to this body kind of as we move through that project. But certainly, just like with the Mid-Island District Plan, we had some guiding documents, which were our plan, and of course, the Gullah Geechee Cultural and Land Preservation Report will also be a guiding document as we go through that full island-wide district planning exercise. So just like the informing documents that informed Mid-Island, we'll use the same documents to inform that district plan. So that's coming in 2023. Do you have any questions about that?
Not necessarily about that. You mentioned a new staff member. Can you tell us a little bit more about her?
Sure. Ashley Goodrich is a principal planner as well, and she brings a large depth of both community planning background as well as transportation planning to us, and so she's going to be a principal planner in the community planning division.
Well, I'm certainly glad you've got some help around you now, and we really appreciate you standing in the gap for as long as you did and had to, but I'm glad that you have some help as well. Anybody have any questions for Missy on this? Mr. Hintz.
Just a comment. I think it's great that we're doing these overlay districts. It seemed to work really well mid-island, and so why wouldn't you want to carry it through the rest of the island? It's forward-thinking. I'm sure you're getting a lot of input. You've got your guideposts, and I'm sure you're getting a lot of input from the residents of those neighborhoods. So I think this is a great forward-thinking process, and I applaud your efforts. I'm really happy about it.
Thank you.
Any other questions or comments on this item? Anyone from the public have a question or a comment on this item? Very good. Very good. I'm going to move to the next item, which is our 2023 task force goals. And let me just say, before you start presenting, Missy, that we had a discussion just actually this morning and in the past as well. I want to recognize some of the folks who are in attendance here today. Certainly Linda Pickett from the Heritage Library, who's been with us many, many times and is very intimately involved in our report and implementing some of those plans. Bless you. And I see Luana Grace Sellers in the house, who is with Low Country Gullah Foundation, and she does a lot of significant work in the community. We will certainly be taking more advantage of the resources and talents that she brings. Mr. Eric Turpin is here from the Native Island Business and Community Affairs Association. Thank you so much for what we've been able to do in the past as well. And also Natalie Hefner. Harvey. I know I was going to mess it up. Who is now with the Office of Cultural Affairs, and it's named in our report that we are going to be collaborating with that office to implement a lot of the items in our recommendations from the task force as well. And of course, Carolyn Grant is our communications director for the town. So when it comes to getting information out and education and things like that, I really appreciate the work that she's doing as well. And I probably should have recognized at the very beginning of the meeting Councilman Brown who is here in attendance. Thank you for all that you do, and thank you for being here as well. And we all know that we got any problems with anything, you can fix everything, so thank you. Okay, the next item is our 2023 task force goals, and I did have an opportunity to meet with Krishana and Missy, and we've been talking about this, Missy, for the last several months, I know, about trying to have a good plan. So this time of the year, obviously, is a good time to look at what we want to try to do in this coming year, but also starting by looking back at maybe some of the things we've accomplished and building on those things, all right? So I won't steal your thunder. I'll let you present that to us.
Well, when we did meet, it was Chairman Stevens' great idea to first, instead of talking about what we want to do, let's reflect on what we have done together, both as a town and as the task force. And so we created a list of 10 accomplishments that we just wanted to reflect on. And certainly you'll see that some of those accomplishments are also on the list of priorities. So we'll talk about that a little bit more as well. But really, I'll just go through the list, and we've accomplished a lot over the years since the task force has been in place. And so we have adoption of family subdivision and family compound regulations. It was no easy task. That's huge to have those regulations and those processes on the books. You'll notice that they're down there in the goals because we know that we need to further refine those and make some tweaks to those regulations as well. We have a dirt road paving program, and that's in place and it's being implemented. And that program, if you're not aware, it allows for those that are interested, you can take an existing dirt road and convert it into town right-of-way, and there is no density that's lost on the parcel size. So the size of the parent parcel remains the size of which density would be calculated. So that loss of acreage as part of the right-of-way acquisition through that process doesn't affect or impact the density for those properties that are willing to implement the dirt road paving program. And then last fall, we adopted the Gullah History and Cultural Education Program, which is really exciting. That's also down on the list of priorities, is because now that it's been adopted, well, we need to implement it. And we have a collaborative idea right now of how we're going to do that, and that includes the Office of Cultural Affairs. Also, I recently just talked about the adoption of the Mid-Island District Plan, which has recommendations for the 5 historic neighborhoods. But also, did we have this on the screen? Karen, did you put this one up here? Okay, sorry. Sorry, this handout I think is just on your desks, but it's not available for everyone else. So we also launched our design studio process, and that's a process that we report regularly to this body, but it's one that is used very frequently, and we have a number of design studios that are active. In fact, we have one later this week as well. But that's the process where we work with property owners within historic districts, and we help with some free planning and assistance for navigating the town's processes, whether it's for development or feasibility of development or business activity. So we work with people within the historic neighborhoods to try to give them the resources and the tools so they know what options are available for them should they want to develop or start a business. We also created the Delinquent Tax Program in coordination with Beaufort County and that process, and certainly Ms. Luana and she's been a huge help with implementation of that program. We've established with the Heritage Library the Heirs Property and Family Research Project, which is wonderful, and it's helping people through genealogy research for heirs property. And we also established some outreach programs within the historic neighborhoods. We've had outreach and activities at area churches and at some of our parks to talk through will seminars, as well as when we implemented the regulations for family subdivision and family compound, we were out in the community giving seminars and education and outreach to explain how those processes would work. Also, through our communications department, we've established regular communications with churches and community organizations and stakeholders, and so that's ongoing. And then we also have a economic and community resources page that's on our website that holds a whole bevy of information about economic activity, heirs property service providers, land use, and Gullah Geechee resources that are available. So those are some of the things that we have done and can continue to work on, but those are just some of the things we wanted to start with that we can celebrate. Hopefully, there's nothing else that you want. I mean, if there's more that we forgot about, please let us know and we'll add it to the list. And then we thought about some of the priorities, and this is just a start. We can add to this list, but we wanted to at least have something in front of you to start with. So number one on there is public policies goals, and of course, it was in the plan called historic overlay, and that's going to be what we're going to call district planning. And certainly, this effort we will have on the agenda every month, and we'll give you progress on that and how we can implement what's included in the report and how we're going to apply it through this other mechanism, which is district planning. So we have that as one of the number one priorities, and currently the plan for that is to incorporate that through district planning. The second item is cultural preservation priority goals, and it's twofold. One is the implementation of our Gullah History and Culture Education program, and two is to establish a resource center, both a brick and mortar resource center, as well as an online 24/7 resource center, something that's a little bit more robust than the page we have on our website right now. So both of those implementation items will require some collaboration, both with Office of Cultural Affairs and with others, to do both of those. And so what we're going to do is we'll establish a project with a task and a timeline for those, and we'll report out based on when there's certain milestones to this body on where we are in implementation. And then number three is the continued efforts and refinement. And on that, we have 4 items. So we have historic neighborhood permitting and design studio. So we'll continue to report out regularly with the monthly reports, and then also do the case studies where when we've run into certain cases that are areas where we want to inform you of how it may impact future policy, then we'll certainly bring those forward. I'd already mentioned that family subdivision and family compound are areas where we could make some tweaks to those regulations for ease of use, as well as looking at changing some of the requirements so that they're not as onerous. And so we're aware of some of those hurdles that are within the existing regulations that are on the books. And then continued support for heirs property and regional coordination is one of the items that's on the list, as well as delinquent tax support. And later on the agenda, Ms. Luana will be talking about our delinquent tax program, and we have a little bit of a collaborative effort on that that we can talk about when we get to that next agenda item. Are there any other goals or things that are within the report that you'd like us to focus on in 2023 as we launch with our new team here?
Thank you, Missy. And as you mentioned, we do have some things to celebrate. We always realize that it's ongoing. There's always work still left to be done. But I thought it was important for us to look back at some of the items that we have so that we're not starting from scratch every time, and we can always look back and tweak the items that we have in front of us. And of course, implementation is the key to all of these items. So, but I just wanted to say that, and I appreciate the work that we've been able to do in the last few months and even years. Questions or comments for Missy? Mr. Hintz?
I think, Mr. Chairman, it's interesting to note that the town council just established their 2-year strategic action plan last week, and 2 of the items, one of them is number 12, completing the implementation of the Gullah Geechee Task Force work plan. So that's high up on town council's list of things to do. Another one is assisting St. James Baptist Church mitigation relocation plan, which I think is wonderful. And a third is commencing operations on the Gullah Geechee Historic Neighborhoods Community Development Corp., including formatting a board of directors and hiring an executive director. So 3 of the 15 are involved with historic neighborhoods, and I think that's good news.
That's great. Thank you for sharing that with us. Other questions or comments for Missy?
I guess it's one question. This may be a little bit of an aside, but it's relative to the Historic Neighborhood Permitting and Design Studio. If a person comes in and needed a legal opinion on something, can that be sought there as well? Like a legal opinion on rights of ways, encroachments, and that kind of stuff?
Yes, access and legal questions are one that if it's something within the town's purview, yes, certainly can be part of Design Studio.
Okay.
We get a lot of access-related Design Studio requests.
Yeah, another question, on the dirt road, and I guess this is only a presentation, I really don't, I guess I don't want to get too deep into the nuts and bolts, but as it comes up, just a question. On the dirt road project, I know that, if I'm not mistaken, it requires that any residents on the road that you have to have 100% of
That's
all
correct.
signatures. I guess my thought about that is, have you been able to accomplish any, have you gone through that process and been able to get any roads approved?
We have, and we can do a full report at another meeting of some of the success stories of the Dirt Road Paving Program. We can show pictures of before and after, but we can highlight where we've implemented Dirt Road Paving Program. And the CIP division is the implementing team for that, and they have a process flow chart, and we could have that as a future agenda item. I think that would be a good idea.
I just, and I asked that because I know there was a few recent issues involving that, so it's just a matter of people still know that they can come and get certain
That's correct.
items. Okay, very good. Thank you.
Go ahead, ladies first.
Okay, thanks. Missy, can you elaborate a little bit on the resource centers?
Yes. So the plan calls for having a resource center where somebody can walk in and get a lot of information. So an in-person location where somebody can answer a lot of questions about heirs property programs and assistance that may be out there to help through some heirs property issues. And we wanted to look at doing both an in-person, but also to have a really robust online resource center that has all of the same brochures and collateral materials, but just presented in an online format. Could also have links to other organizations and what they do and what kind of assistance, and like the network and webbing that exists that can help people through some of their questions. So we wanted to do both and make that a priority in 2023.
So would that be with a physical in-person, would that be here at Town Hall, or?
Well, we'll have to work through that, but what we're thinking is that there could at least be an area within the front lobby that is dedicated to resources for heirs property or Gullah Geechee Historic Neighborhood Design Studio, family compound, family subdivision, so that there's a whole section. And then maybe the resource that they receive is, Ms. Perry, to arrange a meeting and meet with them to go through that information. So it may not be, at USCB in an office that's staffed. It may be utilization of our existing staff, but that we have a dedicated place where somebody can come into Town Hall and access the information. And if they choose to, they could set up a follow-up appointment.
Okay.
Mr. Malik?
Yeah, my comment kind of centered around some of what Ms. George was saying about the educational part. I would be hoping that we could come up with some strategies that are somewhat outside of the box in our thinking, because everybody does social media, and I know that we said we'd go to the churches and the organizations to kind of sort of share information. I think that with so much with all that's happening, I think it's important for us to try to inform the community in every way that we can. So that would involve, strategies that would involve the task force, our new representative. I just think we need to, we have it as a priority, but I think we need to maybe have some real tangible strategies as to how we're going to, increase that educational aspect.
Yes.
Okay.
And we plan on, always collaborating with our communications department on, multiple channels for outreach and education, and we'll continue to do so.
Okay. 'Cause I know that there are activities that have been put in place that are really, really good, beneficial, but people still aren't aware of them.
Correct. Yes.
Then I want to ask another question regarding the design studio report. You have here that there were 19 completed cases. Does that mean there were 19 people that went through the whole process, got permitted, and were able to develop their property?
It means that they were given the tools to apply should they reach that point. Not every design studio results in an application.
So that means they've been fully educated.
Fully educated and have the tools to apply when they're ready to do so.
All right.
Yes.
Thank you.
Other questions for Missy?
I had one.
Yes, ma'am.
And just one other thing, and it has to do with the, when it comes to the education programs, just noting that, I know that we talked about collaborating with the Culture and Affairs Department, but also wanted to make sure that we are touching our resources within the community that we also have in our communities and in our native settings, like, Gullah Museum, Mitchellville, other areas that we can make sure that the language that we are talking, is approved by all, and the decisions that we make in a curriculum is something that is authentic to the culture.
Yes.
Okay, thanks.
We will do so.
Thanks,
And there was a syllabus that was approved with the program, and it included, working with Dr. Cohen as an example, and others on that history and material, and we will do that, yes.
Thank you, Missy.
Natalie, would you come and maybe say hello to us? Natalie Harvey. And I see Jane Joseph here as well. Hey, Jane, thank you so much for being here. Natalie is relatively new, so I just thought we maybe want to hear from her from the Office of Cultural Affairs and also share with us a little bit about some of the things that you're working on that we can help support you with.
Sure. Well, nothing like a surprise appearance, so bear with me as I think through some of the things to share. I've been with the town since the middle of October as the Director of Cultural Affairs, and so I'm still learning some of the projects that I'm involved with. We're really pleased with that position and how involved it is with our public art here in the community, including a lot of capital improvement projects and the fact that, as our parks are developed, that will include some public art opportunities. I spent 25 years at the Coastal Discovery Museum in public education and program development, exhibitions, and so I have a strong affection for and understanding of the history here on Hilton Head. My graduate work was actually done on the history of Hilton Head Island before the bridge, so I come to this with a strong love of the community and the stories, so I'm looking forward to seeing how the Office of Cultural Affairs can assist, as Missy said. We've had several conversations informally about how I can assist in, as you mentioned, Joyce, connecting to organizations that and individuals that maybe the town hasn't identified already to provide those services. So I think there's a lot of different ways that I can be of assistance. I'm excited to work with Krishana as well. We've already shared books and stories with each other. So I'm here as a resource for those of you who I haven't met yet. I hope I have a chance to in the future. So if you have any questions, I can try to answer or find out for you.
Thank you. I don't mean to put you on the spot,
That's okay.
but I definitely want to have you here.
Thank you for the opportunity.
We'll be working pretty closely with you as well.
Appreciate it.
Thank you.
Thanks.
Thank you. Anyone from our in attendance have question or comment on this item? Great. Thank you. That's a great report. And that ends the items on our agenda for our task force. We will have our staff report. But before we do, I would also again recognize our communications director, Ms. Carolyn Grant, who I'm really excited about having her in that position and understanding the significance and importance of the Gullah Geechee culture and what we're doing here on the island. And I have to give her a little shout out because just recently she was featured in Travel and Leisure magazine for the book that she collaborated with, Before the Bridge, with Dr. Campbell and Mr. Barnwell. Also featured in that Travel and Leisure magazine is her niece, my unofficial godchild, Miss Sonia Grant, who does Gullah Teas and Things, one of the young entrepreneurs from here in the community. So really proud of the work that she's doing. Thank you, Carolyn, for being here and for the work that you do. So that's really nice to have someone in a communication position that understands the culture and the history. All right, next item we're moving into, and we've touched on some of those already, is our staff report. And once again, here's Missy.
For the delinquent tax report, I'm going to ask Luana Graves-Sellers to give this update.
I heard you
for us.
mention her earlier, so I didn't want to put her on the spot, but I'm glad she's here with us as well. And I love my Luana. She's one of my favorite vocalists.
Oh, boy.
She can sing a little bit.
Oh, yeah, I did sing the other night.
I've been missing it.
Oh, yeah.
Oh, gee, don't, yeah, I'm not singing today.
Album coming.
Oh, boy, okay, pressure's on now. Thank you for the opportunity to address everyone here. I know everybody, but for those who don't know me, I'm Luana Graves-Sellers, founder of the Low Country Gullah Foundation. What the foundation does is we focus on making sure that heirs property issues are in the process of being eliminated. And so for several different ways, we provide assistance to families that are dealing with either heirs property issues or issues with their property when it comes to paying their taxes. So our program specifically is not a Band-Aid. It is an educational program that includes workshops and information so that people who in most situations don't even know that they have or are living on heirs property. So trying to be proactive instead of reactive, making sure that people are aware of what's going on, aware of the resources that are available to them, and then literally taking them by the hand and guiding them through the process. I know I don't need to explain heirs property to you or the process, but we have strategic partnerships with Linda at the Heritage Library, Center for Heirs Property. We work directly with the county as far as the assessor's office and the treasurer's office, as well as different attorneys that when someone falls through the Center for Heirs Property crack, so to speak, we have attorneys that we can also refer them to as well. So if a person has a financial burden, and I'll give you a real live case study of, we had a recent widow. She was in her 90s. The property was in the husband's name. The property is still in probate. New development came up down the street. Her annual taxes were $423 a year. They suddenly went to $2,200 a year. As a result of that. So those are the kind of situations where if someone is struggling and they are in significant need, we will step in and we will pay the taxes for them so that they can hold on to the taxes. However, in that situation, we don't want someone to think that they can come back every year because we're going to provide for them. So in her case, we need to create a succession plan. who is coming behind you, whose name is the property going to be in, and so on, so that the situation is resolved. It's not just taken care of temporarily and then a problem next year. If it is a case of heirs property issues, what we do is, in addition to educating them, we have stepped in to do mediation between the family so that they can come to an agreement on what needs to happen with the property. If the property is vacant and maybe they can do some economic development on it, or come to some agreement, forestry, carbon dating, anything that is possible for the land to be productive financially. Those are some of the situations and opportunities that we offer. So the program runs a gamut of ways that we assist, because there is no cookie cutter answer or situation for every individual. The program that we have been working within the town, we have started a relationship, a deeper relationship. So going forward, as far as the process that'll go on throughout the year, as far as monitoring the lists and then reporting back to you on the status of the list, who is on the property list, and so on. Those reports will be coming from me so that we have a more cohesive scenario with the program. As far as an update to last year, I'll even go back a year before. In 2021, we were very successful in making sure that no one went to the tax sale based on the advocacy that we do. And by the way, I don't do this by myself and in a vacuum. There is a team of people and a board that actively, in a grassroots way, goes into the community, and sometimes we have to knock door to door, to make sure that people are aware of what we're doing, but that's essentially how we get it done. But anyway, in 2021, we were able to make sure that no one went to the tax sale. Last year, we did have a property that did go to the tax sale. It was based on misinformation on the family's part, which is part of the issue that exists. That property did go into redemption. However, with the help of the foundation, it is not in redemption anymore. And we are actively working with the family to make sure that the property is resolved so that next year is no longer an issue. So those are some of the things that we do. I'm happy to take any questions if anybody has anything. But as time goes on, you will hear more about what the foundation does, including some of the workshops that we will be doing on a quarterly basis, so that people within the community and around the island are better educated, have more resources and information, so that we can essentially eradicate heirs property and make sure that we can hold on to the land that's left.
Thank you.
You're welcome. Do you have a question?
I'm sorry, Mr. Malik.
I'm sitting here, and the whole time that you was giving your information, and I know you, and I know how you have your hands in a lot of things, and you do everything really well.
Thank you.
And I'm sitting here thinking, does she have a succession plan? If she's not there.
Do I have a succession plan? Yes, actually, I do have a succession plan.
I think you answered my question in your talk, but I was happy to hear that you have, not just you, because I know, again, you do a lot, and you do a lot very well. But I'm happy to hear that you have a team working with you on this project. I do.
There is a team that is actively working on the island. Full disclosure, I have also been in the county as far as making sure that the program is well received countywide. So that is something that we are working on. We are working on offices and a whole bunch of other things. Last year, in addition to the work that we did on Hilton Head, we were also able to save a lot of properties that were in St. Helena. Nice. We sometimes, when the word gets out, and it spreads, people are starting to come to not only learn about what we do, but take advantage of the program, and so it has been spreading. I will also share with you that on the state level, Low Country Gullah is also working on some of the laws that exist, because it's a top-down as well as a bottom-up scenario. So that is something that we're actively working. There is a committee that has been put together that is working on the problem. So we are involved, as well as like the Center for Heirs Property, Habitat for Humanity. A lot of different organizations are involved in that state process. But it's a collective effort. And so we're in the fight. We are in
And
the
if I can
fight.
say this, and I'm not trying to throw a monkey wrench into the works, but I know that Teresa White in Beaufort, the St. Helena area, was doing a similar activity. And I know that she had a wealth of information as well. And I don't know if there's an opportunity there, but I'm certainly seeing it could be a good resource as we're starting to develop more of what we do as well.
Teresa and I know each other, and we have shared information on properties in the past. There are differences between our programs. She has primarily branched out to other areas. I've primarily focused on Hilton Head, Beaufort, south of the Broad. She was more north of the Broad, but even outside of this county. So we are aware of each other. The programs that we have are similar, yet they're also different because of the different involvements that we have. So, but yes, I am aware of what she's doing and who she is.
Thank you.
Thank you.
Yes, Ms. Wright?
Thank you. Congratulations.
Thank you.
Really, really happy to hear that things are going well and that, we were able to save as many properties that we can in our area, which is so important, based upon numbers where we were 5-6 years ago, and even 20 years ago. So it's really good to hear that, we're at a point that we can actually say that we had nobody go to the, to the steps. So also I wanted to I'm just curious, you fall under the staff report, so are you working closely with the town with this report, or how is that working? Are you in collaboration with them, or just asking?
Yes and yes. We are in the process of, which we'll probably be finishing up this week, but we are in the process of putting together an agreement to work closer than we have been in the past. And I know that's a little vague, but like I said, we're in the process of working out those details, because there doesn't need to be a duplication in efforts. And I know in the past there sort of was, but that's part of what we're trying to work out, so that moving forward, it's a clear heirs property focus within the town, and Low Country Gullah Foundation will be involved in that. Thank you.
Yeah, that helps with without having a duplication, so it just minimizes the chances for errors and misinformation as well.
Yes.
Mr. Hintz, I think you had a question.
I think Ms. Wright sort of addressed that. I just wanted to know, first of all, congratulations, 2 years, no lost property, excellent. I just kind of, for reference, I kind of wanted to know how bad was it before you all were able to develop this process?
Well, I can't give you a specific answer on that, because unfortunately it wasn't something that was really tracked. One of the issues that has been uncovered through the work that I'm doing is that, and I'm working with the county on this, there is no specific classification for heirs property. There is no specific classification for Gullah properties. So that kind of identification is what you need so that you have a true answer to that question. That also plays into part that there was no specific identified properties just on Hilton Head. So as well as the number of properties, I know we did that a few years ago, it was like four 4 years ago or so, did a count, but a count hasn't been done again since. So those are the kind of things that we will be working on with Krishana. You know, we've already had that conversation so that we can have better metrics moving forward. So that's all part of the organization, to your point, so that we can not only know what we have, but know what we're keeping and moving forward, because we're not losing anymore. as far as I'm concerned, we're going to try not to do that.
Sure. Data and metrics and case studies, all that information is very important to the work that we do. Yes, sir. Mr. Simmons.
Well, and of course, you know, thank you for the work you continue to do.
Thank you.
Well, as Abraham said. If a family came to you, maybe you would be able to direct a family as such. Scenario, a family paid their taxes down through the years. Somehow, by some means, some measure, there was a tax sale. A piece of property was sold. That piece of property was not the family who had been paying their taxes all along. But the tax sale says it's your property that I sold. Where does the family go to try to recover that which has been done and completed by a tax sale?
That is another one of the issues that I'm working on with the county. Unfortunately, right now, if I wanted to call the county offices, and I know your address, I could give your address and say, I'm an interested party, they would change your mailing address for your tax information to mine, whatever I give them. That is current. And so that is one of the things that from a state level, they did not know until I brought it to their attention. And so it's things like that, as well as the fact that if a property does go to partition sale, that it should not be a sole individual who can walk in the door and force the sale, that it should be a 51% owner of the property, or a majority of the owners that have a say in forcing the sale. So those are the kind of top-down conversations that are being had, because it's extraordinarily easy for someone to walk in the door and force that kind of sale, and the wool could be pulled out from under the family and nobody knows. And I know we all know someone, where that has happened. So that's part of the fight. That's part of the conversation that has been going on. And as things go along on the state level, I will come back and report to you so that you are aware of, the changes and the possibilities that can come out of making some alterations in the law.
Yeah, but this was not necessarily a forced sale. It was just an inadvertent sale. Inadvertently,
Both scenarios.
Yeah, okay.
Yeah.
So it would hold true either way.
Yes, because again, everything's not a cookie cutter. It's every scenario with those kind of sales, it's not the same. So there needs to be some kind of latitude that exists, that properties don't all fall into the same funnel, because every situation doesn't fit every situation.
Okay. Thank you
You're welcome.
for introducing yourself. Didn't mean to turn this into an agenda item, but
It's fine.
I appreciate you being a resource. And I want you to share a little bit more with me about that succession plan. That would be very
I'm working on that very hard.
I need one.
Yes, well, I'll share it with you, but you're right, I do need one, and I'm working on that.
Great,
Thank you.
great. Thank you. Okay. Missy, would you like to continue? Oh, I'm sorry, Mr. Scott, you have a question or comment?
I just wanted to say it's good to hear that there's an initiative that's going to the top, because that's where it starts, as far as getting bills drafted to help with the heirs property and keeping the property taxes down. It's good to see that there's a collaboration between an organization with the town, because I think it's going to give a lot of merit behind it. And, you know, having the task force for what you guys have already accomplished can really make a statement to the next level. One thing is having a task force, but getting everything implemented is great. But we know that this is happening statewide, and it's definitely in the right path that we're going. Got to get the town behind it, let them talk to those representatives, all right? Thank you.
Yes, sir.
Good job.
Thank you. Agreed. Missy?
Okay. I don't have anything else on delinquent tax sale, but yes, we are working on an agreement, and hopefully we'll be able to report the final agreement at our meeting next month regarding Luana's work. So next we have design studio report. There was a design studio report in the packet that outlines that we've had 51 design studios to date since the program was launched. And it's really the lens where we will generate those case studies and identify where we've noticed that there are issues that need to be addressed with changes to the code or to our process. So we'll continue to report out any case studies that we need to bring to your attention and how it may impact, future amendments. Are there any questions on the design studio report?
What's the one have to do if they want to have an appointment to have their, going up in the appointment and go in?
So typically how they work is they'll go through Krishana now to arrange the appointment. We're just going to ask a couple of questions about what it is that you're looking for so we can make sure at that initial meeting we have the right team members in place. But typically at that meeting, there'll at least be a planner, there'll be a design staff member, and then somebody that represents the task force with Krishana. And we'll find out what the applicant is trying to do. Is it an access issue? Is it a business activity? Is it development? And then come up with a plan. So if it was somebody who had development in mind, say they wanted to look at doing a subdivision, and they know up front that it is going to involve 4 family members, and they want to bring all 4 family members to this initial meeting, and we'll go through, okay, do you have a survey or any information? Do you know how you want the property to be parceled out? And then we can work through that, but we can do scenario planning where we will do concept plans and say they're not really sure how they want to develop it. Maybe they want 6 lots, maybe they want 3 lots in this configuration. We can do concept A, concept B, concept C. But the outcome at the end is that there would be a clear path for the development that they're looking for. So then it's an interactive process. So after we meet, find out what they want, then we have another meeting where we go over the concept plans that are generated. Then they would choose that, like, okay, this is the one we want to do. Okay, well then your application process would include, here's the application form, here's a plan that then we would run through our internal plan review and have plan review comments. So they'll know that you take this information from this concept plan and this comment report to your design professional, and if you include all of these comments on your plan, then it can be approved. So we try to streamline so that it lessens the amount of professional services and back and forth fees that would be involved with that development application. But either way, even if it was a design studio request for a business activity, at the end, the output is that there's clear instructions on what the applicant would need to do should they want to pursue that activity that they came in for. Mm-hmm.
Okay. Good.
Any questions on Design Studio? The next thing, and I email it to the body as well, but we always include the job openings in the packet as well as via email. We do have quite a few community development openings at the moment. The full slate of openings that we have are 911 public safety, beach operations, code enforcement, community development services coordinator, community planning manager, customer service manager, development services manager, mechanic, revenue services specialist, transportation engineer, and workforce housing program manager. all really great positions that will have an active role in shaping the community as we grow. So if you know anyone, as usual, please refer them to the town's job openings page. Also, I have an updated home safety and repair and sewer connection update. So as of Friday, it's a little bit more updated than what was published in the packet. For home safety and repair, as of Friday, we had 100 applications. That's a lot. So there's a lot of interest in the home safety and repair program. 73 of those applications are approved, and we're working through, we're happy to announce that we've had 10 sites that have had contractor site visits, and we expect to get contractor estimates this week. And I am very hopeful that this month we will have building permits for all of those, and we'll have some under construction. So there was quite an issue with trying to get the amount of bids that we needed to launch the project and get construction underway. So I'm really hopeful that we will have at least 10 projects underway this month. So I'm excited about that. But as you can see, the number of applications, it's not as steep as it was previously, but we are at 100 applications received. For the sewer connection program, we've received 14 applications, and 13 of those have already been implemented, and one of them we're still receiving estimates from PSD. So both programs are up and running, and at least with the sewer program, we've had quite a few connections made already. One other update before we turn it over to Krishana. I emailed the Gullah Geechee Historic Neighborhoods Community Development Corporation information out to the task force when it became available, but I just wanted to add it to the record today that we are seeking applicants to serve on the board of directors of that really important body. And there actually are flyers right at the right near the door. And if you know anyone, certainly please let them know about this opportunity. There's information about it on our website. And it's a really wonderful opportunity for some direct implementation right within the historic neighborhood. So it's a really great opportunity. That's all I have on staff reports, but Krishana has a
Great.
couple
Thank you, Missy.
additional.
Mr. Chairman,
I'm sorry?
I have one question for
Yes,
Missy
ma'am.
before she leaves. So is there any timeline on the money for the improvements for the housing or for the sewer, like for the funds?
For like additional funds to be allocated?
Or the funds that we have? I mean, there's no timeline to say that you have to have these completed before the fund, yeah.
Oh, no. So it was implemented that it would be a 2-year program. And so the home safety and repair program had $200,000 annually, and it was in the previous fiscal year when it was awarded. So then we rolled the full funding over. So we had $400,000 available currently. And we're looking to include in next year's budget additional funding to continue the programs, both programs going forward. And so that will be looked at through the town's budget process, but the intent right now is to continue the programs.
And how long would that be in the town's budget?
I can't answer that, but I'm incorporating it in the budget going forward.
Okay, great, thank you.
Thank you, Missy. Okay. Ms. Krishana?
Hello again. Just a couple of fun updates, I think we could call that. So just to share a little bit more about some of the regional coordination efforts that we're doing in education, sharing and learning. Town staff will be attending and hopefully coordinating with the task force as well on a conference coming up on St. Helena in April about environmental justice for Gullah Geechee communities in the area, as well as sustainability sustainability work, so working on some sustainability and environmental justice work there. So just wanted to share about that and what, the type of learning that will be going on during that as well. Again, wanted to just note that we are tracking, what's going on at the state level as far as with AIR's property work. We'll be working with Ms. Luana on that. And a very random note, Ms. Carolyn Grant would like to take a photo of the task force after the meeting. So please stay for 5 minutes or so after the meeting. And again, sorry I was so short with my introduction. I didn't know how much time I had. So I look forward to just further introducing myself and getting to know y'all as well. So I think that's it for staff updates. Thanks.
Okay, great. Great. Thank you. That is all the agenda items I have for today. And I do want to again thank all of those who are in attendance. Of course, Heather Raff is our community advocate, and Taiwan Scott from the National Action Network, and certainly involved in the community. And I believe that Pastor Nanette back there. Thank you for being here. It's good to see you as well. And we welcome our new planner.
She didn't really introduce us.
Yeah, would you like to introduce yourself? Let me say that another way. We want you to introduce yourself.
Good afternoon. My name is Ashley Goodrich, and I'm happy to be here working with the town. I'm an AICP planner specializing in mostly transportation. I just came from Chatham Area Transit in Savannah. I've been working in planning and transportation for over 10 years, and I am an AICP accredited planner. For the new year, for 2023, we have a lot of goals and missions and projects and plans to implement, and a lot of things to look at all across the island that I'm really excited about. To tell you a little bit of where I'm from not from this area, but this is sort of something that I like to call my adult home, is that my family on my mother's side is from Northwest Arkansas and the Ozarks, if you have seen those shows and things like that. My father and my father's family worked in oil for Phillips Petroleum, and he's located over in Dallas. So a little bit like the highwaymen, they kind of run back up and forth. I completed my master's in planning at the University of New Orleans, and I spent some time on the Gulf Coast with a few similar issues as what the task force has talked about today. However, I do prefer living over here in the Low Country area in Savannah, and about 3 years ago I had opportunity to come back this way, and so I did. I believe from an environmental standpoint, I think our water is a little cleaner, our air is a little better, and we have a very, very nice, great place to live, and I hope that we can all keep it that way. If you have any questions for me, I can answer them.
Well, thank you so much for introducing yourself and sharing that with us. Anybody have any questions for Ashley? Great. Thank you so much. We look forward to working with you as well.
Awesome. Thank you, guys.
Okay, and with that, again, I've reached the end of my agenda. As always, Councilor Chet Williams, we're glad to have you in attendance as well. If there are no other questions or comments from my colleagues here, I will entertain a motion for adjournment.
So moved.
It's been moved. We find ourselves now adjourned. Thank you all so much for being here.